Yo, what's up guys, it's Rob, and today we're going to be looking at the Gamesense Meta. Huge shout out to Gamesense for sending this out for review. I really appreciate it. It will not affect the review in any way, of course. So yeah, let's get right into it. This is a wired $60 mouse that has the Pixart 3360 sensor, which is extremely reliable and I had no issues with at all. The mouse weighs in at 63 grams and the shape is inspired by the Zowie S2. And now, of course, I have the new Zowie S2-C right here. And I, of course, tested both mice out and I will also be comparing them both in this video. So first, let's talk about the Meta shape. My hands are 17.5 centimeters long and 9.5 centimeters wide. And I do love the S2 shape because my grip preference is claw. And I think the S2 shape is just perfect for claw grip. But I did feel more comfortable using the Meta over the S2 because the Meta is just slightly smaller and I feel like I can grip it easier. The Meta is slightly shorter and not as tall. So when I hold the S2C while using claw grip, I definitely feel it fill my hand more than the Meta does. So like I said earlier, this mouse really is amazing for claw grip because the hump is more towards the back, but when it comes to palm grip, I wasn't really able to get comfortable trying to use palm grip with this mouse because the hump is more towards the back and my hand just doesn't really feel comfortable having to go over this small hill of a hump that is on the back of the mouse. And the same goes for the S2C. I tried palm gripping this mouse. Because the S2C is slightly bigger, my hand is able to fit on the mouse more than the Meta, but like I said, the hump just doesn't make it comfortable at all. So I really wouldn't recommend either of these mice for palm grip, and I wouldn't really recommend it for fingertip grip either, because unless you are gripping the mouse more towards the back, like this, like pushing the mouse forward and gripping it from the back right here, this is the only way I can see fingertip grip being possible with either the S2C or the Meta, because if you try to grip it more from the front, well, I can't because of my hand size. Maybe you can if you have bigger hands and or longer fingers, but it's just not possible for me. My palm ends up touching the back of the mouse and I just wasn't able to make it work unless I tried gripping the mouse from the back. This way fingertip grip is possible, and the same goes for the S2C, of course. And now for the coating of the mouse. As you can kind of already tell, you do leave a lot of fingerprints on this mouse, which is something I don't really mind at all because I'm not really looking at the mouse while I'm using it because it's in my hand. So I don't really care much for it. I know it's a big deal for a lot of people, but what matters to me is the coating and the grip and the feel of the coating, of course. And well, this grip on the Gamesense Meta feels very grippy and I have very sweaty and clammy hands. So this coating is perfect for me because I do get a lot of grip, and even when my hands get pretty sweaty, the mouse still feels great and I am very easily able to drag click with this mouse because of the grippy coating, as you can see. One thing I would like to note is that I did have to end up cleaning the mouse after my testing of the mouse was finished, which was about a month or so. It does gather up gamer gunk quite a bit. Another thing I'd like to note is that the coating of the Gamesense Meta is much better than the Zowie S2C coating. I do feel like this coating from Zowie has improved, but it just wasn't as grippy as the coating that I found on the Gamesense Meta, and the S2C also gathers up a lot of fingerprints. So now for the cable of the mouse. The cable of the Gamesense Meta is very flexible, as you can see. I didn't have any issues with it. It performed really well. I really don't think you need to replace this cable at all because it worked perfectly fine. And I also never stepped on the cable with the mouse itself. I know this is an issue with very flexible cables, but this just didn't happen with this cable. And the cable of the S2C is also flexible and it is improved from previous Zowie cables, but it just isn't as flexible as the one on the Gamesense Meta. As you can see, the Gamesense Meta just has a better cable, and the S2C, maybe I would replace this cable, but I think it is bearable. However, you will end up feeling the cable more on the S2-C than on the Meta. So now for the mouse feet of this mouse. The mouse does come with PTFE feet, and I had a smooth glide on my Gamesense Radar mousepad, but on my Aqua Control Plus, there was actually a break-in period of maybe, I don't know, a couple of days. At first, it was a little bit scratchy, and it wasn't all that smooth, but once I started using the mouse more, it became smooth, and now it is a nice glide. And I would probably still end up replacing the mouse feet just for a faster and smoother glide, but I don't think it's necessary. Unlike the Zowie S2-C, as you can see, I did end up replacing the mouse feet on my S2-C because the mouse feet are just horrible. The stock feet, at least. You don't get a smooth glide with the stock feet on the S2-C. So now for mouse 1 and mouse 2, the Gamesense Meta comes with the KLGM 4.0 switches, which are very nice and crisp, satisfying to click. I do have some post travel, but this did not affect my gameplay at all. I also didn't have any side play on the Gamesense Meta Click, which is always good to see. Pressing down on either mouse 1 or mouse 2 does require just slightly above average force to actuate mouse 1 or mouse 2. So if you do like a more sensitive mouse 1 or mouse 2, then just keep this in mind. The mouse 1 and mouse 2 of the Zowie S2-C are much more sensitive, and they're actually just too sensitive for me. Sometimes when I lift up the mouse with the S2-C and I put it back down on my mousepad just to readjust, I accidentally press mouse 1 or mouse 2. That's mainly because I prefer heavier clicks on my mice. That's an issue that did not happen with me on the Gamesense Meta. And now for the side buttons of the mouse. The side buttons have a nice crisp click when pressing down on either of them, and I really get no pre or post travel. These side buttons are really something else. They're a good size. They have kind of like a glossy, shiny coating on them, which I don't think is a big deal at all. But the side buttons overall performed really well. I didn't really have any issues with them. So now for the scroll wheel of the mouse. The scroll wheel does get kind of loud when you scroll a little bit fast. Nowhere near as loud as the Zowie S2-C. We all know how horrible the Zowie scroll wheels are. But in terms of performance, I really didn't have any issues with the scroll wheel. I never accidentally pressed down on middle mouse button when scrolling up or down. And I also never scrolled up or down when pressing down on a middle mouse button. Pressing down on middle mouse button requires less than average force to actuate. And you can also actuate the scroll wheel by pressing it from left to right, pushing it to the right like this, but you cannot actuate it by pushing it from right to left. The scroll wheel feels very tactile even when scrolling fast or slowly, which is something that I personally like. I just like being able to feel all the steps when scrolling up or down. Normally with other scroll wheels, when you try to scroll faster, you kind of lose that tactility, which obviously doesn't affect performance or isn't a big deal, but I just thought it was something to note because it's something that I like. And of course, the Zowie scroll wheel is very, very loud. It is very tactile as well, and it requires about average force to actuate when compared to other scroll wheels, and it cannot be actuated from either the left or the right side. But overall, the performance of both scroll wheels, they both performed really well, and I had no issues with them once again. So now for the build quality of both mice. I think both mice are built really, really well. I do have to give the edge to Zowie on this one because I just get absolutely no creaking whatsoever or rattle when I shake the mouse. I don't get any rattle when shaking the Gamesense Meta either. I sometimes get creaking when stress testing the mouse, but the mouse does feel solid. Honestly, it kind of almost feels hollow when holding the mouse, the Gamesense Meta. And the Zowie S2-C feels very solid. It is just slightly heavier. I can notice the difference, but the difference is very minimal. But the S2-C does feel more solid. However, the build quality of the Gamesense Meta is not bad either. So would I end up recommending the Gamesense Meta? Yes, I definitely would. I do think this mouse is better than the Zowie S2-C, and I think this is the best S2 clone that I have used, And of course, I do think that it is a better mouse than the S2-C. The cable is much more flexible. The mouse feet give a smoother glide. I liked the coating better. And for my hand size, the Gamesense Meta just fit in my hand better. That is mainly because it is slightly smaller and my hands really aren't the biggest, but you also have to remember the Gamesense Meta is $10 cheaper, which is pretty awesome because I definitely think that you're getting a better product over the $70 S2C. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!